Hi, welcome to this Blender walkthrough all about rocks. So we're going to start with our default scene in Blender, which is basically a cube, and you'd be amazed at how many complex scenes start off with a simple cube. You can do so much with it, and that's what we're going to start off with. We're going to start off with a cube to create a simple rock. Now, there are a number of ways that we could do this. The first way is low poly. So I'm going to change this into a bit of a longer rock by hitting S to scale, but I don't want to scale it on every dimension. I just want to scale it on the X dimension, and we're going to have a longer rock like that. Okay, still doesn't look much like a rock. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into edit mode and put a cut in there in the middle. That just means that I've got roughly squares dealing with, which is better. So I'm now going to select everything, hit W and subdivide. And I'm just going to hit W and subdivide again. So that now gives me some geometry to work with. So while we're in edit mode, I'm going to make sure I'm on vertices selection. And I'm just going to start pushing these vertices down. Now at the moment, I'm only pushing that single vertices, which isn't what I want. Okay, so I'm going to put proportional editing on. Hit enable, so we can now see that's on. And what that means is that we now have a circle that we can make bigger with our mouse wheel, which allows us to move all the vertices around that to the point where if we make the circle big enough, we're moving it all. We don't want to move it all, we want to bring it in and just affect that. So I'm going to press G for grab, and I'm just going to move it in the Z axis down a little bit. Then G for grab, Shift Z to not move it in the Z axis but to move it in. Okay. Take this corner, move that in. Take this corner, move that in, and so on. So I'm creating, without reference at this stage, just a bit of rough experimentation to create a rough rock shape. Okay, so bring that down a bit more, that down and in a bit more. Okay. Let's just make the bottom a bit more irregular. Okay, so we've got a very rough rock there. So let's just render that and see what it looks like. I'll just put some lighting in the scene. And I'm just going to add plane and lift the rock up a little bit so that we can see it. So we've got no materials on it yet, no colours. We do have the option up here to apply smooth shading, which makes it look a little bit more rocky. Okay, there's lots more we can do to this yet, so I'm going to turn smooth shading off for now. Put it onto flat shading. Go back into solid mode, go back into edit mode. This side here was looking a little bit too squared, and I think so is this. Okay, a little bit more irregular. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a modifier. So while we're in object mode, I'm going to click on my modifier button, add a modifier and a subdivision surface. Now what that does is two things. It gives us extra divisions. So if we look, that's what it was like before. If we go into wireframe mode, you'll see it better. So that's what it looks like there. Add that and we have more subdivisions. Go again and we have even more. Now what that also does is smooth it off. So this is now a much more smooth and weathered rock, which is the type of rock that I'm interested in. If you click on simple, it doesn't do the smoothing. Okay, it just adds the extra geometry, but I want that smoothing. Okay, we'll go back into solid mode. And if we put smooth shading on now, we can see we've got much more of a rock. Okay, I'm just going to hit Shift C to center again. We're now going to use sculpting tools to add some more detail to this rock. Okay, so it's fairly smooth at the moment, but we want to add not texture, that'll come later when we add the materials to the rock. But if I go into sculpt mode, sort of rock I'm interested in is more like gritstone, which tends to come in layers. Stratified rock, I think it's called. So I'm going to use this sculpt draw brush, and with it I can simply draw lines around here, and it will slowly build up and pull out. I add the strength a bit more. Okay, so we've got a bit of a ridge in there. One of the things you can do is enable topology. Okay, now that puts us into this different mode. Take smooth shading off, can add it back on, but what this does is, I'll take symmetry off, what this does is it actually adds extra vertices as we are drawing. So I can add the effect. of some of these layers in the rock. Go back to object mode and have a look what that looks like. Go back to sculpt mode, and this time I'm going to use the smooth. And this is just going to smooth it out a little bit. Okay. And it's just created some more irregularities in the rock. Okay, we'll go back to object mode and let's have a look at that. Rendered, no materials yet, so it's just going to look white. But as a first quick attempt, as a demonstration of the workflow that I think I'll be taking in this, I think that's a fairly good indication of what can be achieved, especially if I take more time over it than I have done for the purpose of this video. Okay. Now, at the moment, that single rock has 80,000 triangles, which is way too many. Because if I've got a number of rocks in these scenes, that's going to build up and up and up. So what we do have is we have what's called a decimate. Now what decimate does, if the ratio is set to 1, it won't reduce any of the triangles in there. But for instance, if I set that to 0.5, what it's going to do is it's going to try and keep that shape as much as possible by reducing the number, but still reduce the number of polygons. So 0.5. Okay, we can't see any discernible change in the model, but we're now down to just over 40,000. I'm actually going to try going even lower to 0.3. A little bit of change there in some of the detail, but we're going to be adding detail with the texture later, and we're now down to 24,000 triangles. So a much better use of the polygons. And if we just go back into wireframe mode, we've still got a fairly detailed, I might even be able to get that down even further, 0.2. And again, it's keeping that shape, it's keeping the shape that I want. We're now down to 16, so we've got down from 80,000 polygons to 16,000. And still kept the sculpted shape of the rock that we want. Just going to try one more. 0.1. Yeah. That still looks good. And we're now at 10% of the polygon. So especially once you've used the sculpting tools, Dino topology, you can get away with then using the decimate. I'll apply that. I'll apply that. And we've got 4,000 faces in there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that little walkthrough of some simple modelling and sculpting. And in the next video, we'll look at how to go about texturing this and making it look like a rock. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.